Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I thought I'd do a video here on when to harvest oregano and how I deal with it once I've harvested it. So it's around the middle of June here in Nova Scotia, Canada. And I got some oregano here that I think is ready to harvest. So the trick with the oregano is that you want to harvest it before it goes to flower. And it looks like it's just about to go to, I mean, most of these herbs, right? Anything like this, you're not harvesting it for the flowers. You don't want seeds, you want the leaves. And most plants, once they flower, the chemical composition of the foliage changes and is less sweet, let's put it that way. So they're at their best right now. In another week or so, these will start to flower up and things will be less good. Okay, now I could wait another day or so, and I'd like to because it's been awfully rainy here and I'd like them to sort of dry out a little bit more, but they're reasonably dry to the touch here. Also, when you're harvesting oregano, good idea to just do that before you start picking, because sometimes, and I've learned this the hard way, bees, this is more the case in the fall, but bees will spend the night in the plant, and you grab a fistful of leaves, you grab a fistful of stalks, and then you get an unbelievably intense pain in the palm of your hand because you're getting stung in the fingers by multiple bees, which really hurts. I can tell you from experience. So yeah, a little like that. So these are about almost 2 feet high, or get thereabouts, maybe not quite that, but close. 20 inches, 22 inches. Okay, and you can see the tops. There's no flower yet, but it's getting very close. Okay, so these are ready to harvest. Let me show you what I do with them. Okay, so all I do is get a thingamajigger like this. So just got a wooden frame and some snow fencing stretched across it. Okay, this way I can set it in my gardening shed where there's a bit of airflow out of the weather. And I'll just leave, I'll cut these and lay them out and leave it for a few weeks. So let me just show you how that goes. All right, so I cut these off and I leave about 6 inches of the plant in the ground. These will all grow. I can get a second crop of these in the fall, okay? So this isn't all I get, right? But a lot of people have the idea that they'll have these herbs and they'll go out to the garden when they need them and take them as they need them. And in some cases that's the case, and you can do that. But for something like oregano, especially if you grow a lot like me, right? I mean, you want to harvest a whole bunch of this. I mean, I haven't bought oregano in years, right? So I harvest it and I dry it and I use it all winter long. And I don't need to buy it. And all I have is one, I mean, this all started with one transplant, I got it at a garden center years ago. I just stuck that in the ground, and you know what, I probably got 3 oregano plants divided up from that original plant, and I've given cuttings to people, right? Right, any one of these, I mean, this whole little box here, it's about 2 feet by 2 feet, is just full of them. And I can just pull one out of the ground, and as long as there's a bit of root on it, like that, right? So I just pulled that and there's a little bit of root. Stick that in the ground, you get a whole new plant, and it'll look like that monstrosity in a few years, right? So it's the gift that the gift that keeps on giving, right? So I've laid most of these out one way, right? So now once I got the board loaded up, I start laying them perpendicular to that. I don't know if that makes any difference, but that's what I do. I feel like more air, I'm trying to get air in between the layers of the oregano, right? I got enough oregano plants to make 2 of these boards like this, right? I do all of this for where I am. I mean, I do it when the plant's ready, but that tends to be sometime in June. Could be earlier or later, depending on what kind of growing season we're having, right? I mean, fresh herbs are nice, right? But, you know, the herbs are perfectly fine when they're dry, right? And you want them to be dried at their peak so they'll flavor your food. All right, so there we have it, one massive board of oregano, and that should dry out, right? I mean, I think it feels like it's going to rain tonight, so I got to get this out of the weather. But all I do is in my gardening shed, I got these strings near the rafters. I hang them up in the rafters where it's a bit warmer, where there's air circulation, there's vents in the peaks of the shed, so there's airflow in the shed, and it gets warm during the day and it cools down at night, and there's airflow. So I find this time of year, June, July, right, that's all you need. Not very good light in here, but you can see I got this rack just leaning against the old lawn tractor, and then I got the, for those of you who don't live in the northern regions, this is called a utility sled. Anyway, I got the other rack up here on top of the utility sled. All right, so nothing fancy, right? Just stick it somewhere. It's temporary, right? 2, 3, 4 weeks. You can tell they're ready to harvest when you can pick them up and the leaves are brittle and they're falling off, right? If you scrunch them up, the leaves just start sort of breaking and falling off the stalks, right? Once the leaves are that dry, that's when it's time. If there's any bend or give in the leaves, then they still have a moisture content, and you don't want to be sealing them up in jars when they're like that, right? So you keep an eye on the weather and the temperature conditions, and you make note of when you've had a string of hot, dry days. So, I mean, you keep an eye on them for a few weeks and figure out when they're dry. And once they're dry, you wait for a string of hot, dry days, right? And then after like 2, 3 good, hot, dry days, you can be very confident that most of the moisture has been flushed out of the leaves, and that's when they're ready to be stored. So by some point in July, I should be able to take these, and I get my kids to pull the leaves off the stems, and we just pack them all into jars as dried herbs, and they keep just fine. If you dry them out properly, they keep just fine as dried herbs, and you can use them all season long. So that's what's left. That'll all grow back, and I'll get I'll get more by September. I can harvest them again, right? They all have to be cut down by the end of the season anyway. I got a whole nother plant over there to harvest. I'll do that in a few minutes. That's all there is to it. Harvesting oregano, and in a lot of herbs, this is how you harvest them. Savory, thyme, etc., etc. That's all I do, right? Dry them out, then remove them from the main stems, put them in jars when they're dry, and use them as you need it. Hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Hey folks, if you live in the USA and want to help support the channel, check out the Hudson Valley Seed Company and use my coupon code MARITIME10 to get a 10% discount on whatever you buy. In addition, all seed orders over $35 will get free shipping. They have a great selection of seeds, so maybe give that a try this year, and that'll help support everything I'm doing here. Thanks a lot.